Good afternoon, Mr. Mybeck. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, DCJ.
Are you ready?
Yes, we are.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Gigaba is legally represented?
Yes, the representation is the same as before.
Yes. Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Ms. Gigaba. Your mic is off.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming back. Okay, Mr. Mybeck.
Yes, thank you. Chairperson, Ms. Gigaba's exhibit is Exhibit 26. Which I understand you have in front of you. I'm going to start by taking her to a supplementary stroke clarification affidavit that she recently filed. I assume you would want the oath administered.
Yes, but maybe before that, for the benefit of the public, you could just indicate why she's back to give evidence.
Chairperson, you will recall that we had a marathon session that went on, I think it was until 11:30 on one evening with Ms. Gigaba.
Yes.
Ms. Gigaba did indicate in the course of evidence that there were certain things that she was unhappy about, content of the affidavit and other things.
Yeah.
It was always envisaged that she would put in that affidavit and that we would then have to deal with it. So that's one leg of the sitting this evening. The other leg, and I suppose it must follow after we've dealt with the supplementary affidavit and any corrections that she wants to make, we need then to put Mr. Gigaba's version to her for her comment.
Yes.
So those are the twin purposes of this evening's session.
Okay, no, that's all right. Please administer the oath of affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
I'm Norma Gigaba.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No?
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
So DCJ, sorry, I've just been advised that the oath has not been recorded because the witness spoke too softly.
Oh, okay. Please try again. Okay.
Please state your full names for the record.
I'm Norma Gigaba.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No?
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I apologize. I would have wanted to probably just assist by inserting a few corrections on the supplementary affidavit which Mr. Mybeck is going to be dealing with now. It's just two cosmetic changes so that we place them on record.
Oh, those have not been conveyed to Mr. Mybeck as yet? Or is he aware of them? The ones you want to
I would believe from the correspondence we've had that they have been brought to his attention. However, they do not appear as such on the supplementary affidavit.
Okay, Mr. Mybeck, are you aware of any corrections to be made?
There were some things that were discussed. I'm not aware of exactly what corrections my learned friend may have in mind, but I have no objection to her placing them on record if she wishes.
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
Chair, it is strictly to deal with paragraph 66.4 of the original affidavit, bundle page 1015.
1 second. Is the affidavit, or the affidavit at page 997 is
Indeed,
the
Chair.
main one? Okay, all right.
At the first line, paragraph 66.4 shows the date of 18 June 2020.
Paragraph
what paragraph?
66.4,
66.4
or page 1015.
at page 1015, Chair.
Yes, you say that the corrections you would like to bring to my attention are corrections that should be made in respect of the main affidavit.
The main affidavit. The
But
content is otherwise.
Yeah, but those corrections are not catered for in the supplementary affidavit.
No, we missed them for some mistake, Chair. I think when we printed the final version, somebody just did not put that paragraph, although it was there.
Okay, you can point them out, but it would be important to still have then another supplementary affidavit to put them in, because otherwise they may be missed out, because we can't amend the affidavit.
Indeed,
Yeah.
Chair.
Okay, point them out.
Chair, it will be the
66.4.
66.4, first line. The date reflected there is 18 June 2020. It
Yes.
should instead be 20 July 2020. At the second line, the date reflected is 24 June 2020. The correct date would then be 22 July 2020.
Okay.
Apart from that, Chair, it will only be the cosmetic change to the supplementary affidavit,
Yeah.
where at paragraph 9.4, the last line.
Well, where do we find the supplementary affidavit first? Mr. Majek?
The supplementary affidavit, Chairperson, is contained at page 1027.8.
Yes, the supplementary affidavit is at 1027.8.
Yes, I've got it. Okay, where do we make the corrections?
Paragraph 9.4, Chair. The last line of the paragraph.
9.4, yes.
It says to his commission, when it was supposed to be to this commission.
Oh, okay, okay. Yes.
That will be it. Those are the only
Yeah.
three issues, Chair.
Okay, no, that's
Thank
all
you very
right.
much.
Okay. I think that it's the dates that are important. But of course, once you do a supplementary, you may as well do the third one as well. Okay. All right. Mr. Majek?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Gigaba, could I take you please to page 1027.8, to your supplementary affidavit?
You confirm that we are going to be using Transnet Bundle 7? Huh?
Yes, Chairperson.
Yeah, okay.
Ms. Gigaba, could you please go to your supplementary affidavit towards the end of Exhibit 26 at page 1027.8. Will be amongst the last 10 pages or so of that bundle. Someone, please help her.
Maybe somebody should assist her.
At 1027.8, are you there?
Yes.
You find a supplementary affidavit of yours. If I could take you, please, to 1027.18. You'll see that it ends there and it includes an annexure.
Yes.
1027.19, the letter from your attorney, through to 1027.22. Do you see that?
Yes.
If I could ask you, please, to go back to page 1027.17. Would you confirm that you deposed to this affidavit on the 18th of May 2021? You
Yes.
confirm that?
Yes, I do.
You confirm the truth and accuracy of this affidavit?
Yes, I do.
Chairperson, I would ask that you admit this affidavit of Ms. Gigaba dated the 18th of May 2021, commencing at Transnet Bundle 7, page 1027.8, as Exhibit BB 26.4.
The affidavit of Ms. Norma Gigaba that starts at page 1027.8 is admitted and will be marked as Exhibit BB 26.4.
Ms. Gigaba, I'm going to take you through this affidavit before we turn to me putting to you Mr. Gigaba's version. You say at paragraph 2 that having held consultations with the evidence leaders and or further consultations with my legal team prior to my appearance at the Commission, scheduled for 26 April, it became necessary that I file a supplementary affidavit for the following reasons, which I must highlight are not exhaustive. You say 2.1, to clarify various aspects of my affidavit, which has previously served before this Commission, and on which the Commission led me on 26 April 2021. Will you confirm that?
Yes.
Sub 2, to highlight that when I deposed to the first affidavit, I was not given sufficient time to go through the affidavit before signing it. The affidavit was signed in the presence of my previous counsel, who, for security reasons, advised that I sign the affidavit immediately and that for security reasons, we should not keep a copy thereof. The Commission had dropped off a hard copy with my counsel after they informed him that they could not email it to us. You confirm that?
Yes.
And who is the previous counsel that you're speaking of there?
It was Advocate Temega Ngogaidogi.
Sub 3, to provide context insofar as is necessary to distinguish between information contained in the affidavit allegedly being common cause or public knowledge, which was not in my personal knowledge, but that was instead provided by the Commission through its investigator. You confirm that?
Yes, I do.
Sub 4, to raise concern with the Commission's decision to change evidence leaders when I had at all times prepared and consulted with Advocate Paul Pretorius SC with the understanding that he would be leading my evidence and substituting him with Advocate Anton Myburg SC, who had, seemingly through no fault of his own, clearly not been given a proper handover report on our consultations, resulting in having to rehash the consultations I had with Pretorius SC. The result of this is that the concerns I had originally raised with Pretorius SC were not known to Myburg SC to my detriment. Even when similar concerns were raised with Myburg SC, they were not dealt with, hence my continued concern with some parts of the affidavit. Confirm that?
Yes, I do.
And then you deal with those concerns. More specifically, the very fact that the affidavit contained information that I had no independent knowledge of and as a result created discomfort that I had addressed with Pretorius SC. This situation added to the failure to make the necessary corrections to my affidavit, some of which were material. Confirm that?
Yes, I do.
Sub 6, the issue of my security concerns had been furnished to the Commission through the evidence leaders who had undertaken to ensure that I would be provided with security. However, and despite numerous promises, nothing had been done by the Commission in this regard, which indicated total disregard to my safety concerns duly raised. Following my appearance before the Commission on 26 April 2021, the Commission, through my attorney, inquired if I still needed security to be provided. I have advised my attorney that I no longer need the security as I've already appeared before the Commission. Confirm that?
Yes, I do.
You go on to say...
Just before you proceed, Mr. Maybeck, I just want to indicate that subsequent to Ms. Gigaba's appearance last time, and in the light of the issues she raised about the Commission not having attended adequately, or maybe not at all as far as she is concerned, to her security concerns, I specifically asked the head of the investigation team, Mr. Nombembe, to take steps to establish what needs to be done and whether Ms. Gigaba still needs security so that her concerns could be addressed and dealt with. I have been given a verbal report, but I don't think that what I've been given is final. So I just want to indicate that after I'd heard your concerns, I did give instructions that you be approached to establish exactly what can still be done in regard to your concerns.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Maybeck.
Chairperson. Then at 2.7, my affidavit had been leaked to the media and given to AJ Gupta without my knowledge, permission, or the Commission informing me or my counsel. These developments further exacerbated the situation. And 2.8, the fact that a narrative has been created by the Commission that I had in fact approached the Commission to give evidence when that was in fact not true. You confirm that?
Yes, I do.
And then at 3, I attach here to the letter that caused my attorneys of record to deliver, that I caused my attorneys of record to deliver to the Commission, highlighting the concerns that I have alluded to above as Annexure NG1. Now that's the letter that was read into the record previously and dealt with, correct?
Yes.
4, in submitting this affidavit, I should not be understood to waive any of my legal rights, which are hereby expressly reserved. I confirm that some of the concerns expressed herein were also raised by me and partly addressed by the Commission, by the Chairperson. You confirm that?
Yes, I do.
Insofar as my first affidavit filed with the Commission is concerned, I wish to clarify the following paragraphs as contained therein. And then what you do is you refer to paragraph 6 of your original affidavit, and perhaps you can keep your finger there, and then you can open your main affidavit, which you find towards the beginning of that exhibit. Paragraph 6 you'll see at page 1000. And paragraph 6 is a table of Mr. Gigaba's ministerial appointments, correct?
Yes, sir.
What you say at your paragraph 5.1 of your correcting affidavits, that the dates set out when Mr. Malusi Gigaba held various positions in Cabinet. These dates are not within my independent and or personal knowledge or recollection. They were, however, inserted from the information provided by the Commission through its investigators. Consequently, I cannot vouch for the veracity thereof. Confirm that?
Yes, I do.
Then you deal with paragraph 10 in your correcting affidavit. Paragraph 10 of your main affidavit deals with, at page 1001, deals with one of Mr. Gigaba's sisters, Ms. Gugu Gigaba, and makes reference to the fact that she was employed at Transnet in a particular position, a manager in the project management office. In paragraph 5.2 of your correcting affidavit, you say the specific position of Ms. Gugu Gigaba, who is employed at Transnet, is provided. This information was not within my personal knowledge, and as a result, I can't vouch for its veracity. I've been informed, however, so you say, by Advocate September that the information has been the subject of testimony before the Commission. Confirm that?
Yes, I do.
Then you deal with paragraphs 19 and 20. This is something that you testified to before the chairperson. Paragraphs 19 and 20 of your main affidavit at page 1003 deal with the waterkloof issue, correct?
Yes.
What you say in paragraph 5.3 of your correcting affidavit is that an impression has been created from the reading of these two paragraphs that I went to the Waterkloof airport twice, a few days before the wedding and on the day of the wedding. The correct sequence is that I did not go to Waterkloof again on the day of the wedding, but had been there only once a day or two before the wedding. You confirm that?
Yes, it's correct.
Then you deal with paragraph 30.2 of your main affidavit, and this relates to the India trip and the date of it. It's something you also dealt with in your evidence previously. You say at paragraph 5.4 of your correcting affidavit, during my consultation with evidence leaders, I couldn't vouch for the accuracy of the date in the absence of my passport as far as the India trip was concerned. It has since been brought to my attention that according to Mr. Gigaba, this trip, which is common cause, took place in 2015, which date I cannot dispute. I travelled with Mr. Gigaba to India only on one occasion. I think you dealt with that before. So you want to correct the 2010 to 2015.
Yes, it's correct.
Then you go on to deal with paragraph 39. Paragraph 39 of your main affidavit, you say, on 26 May, Mr. Gigaba was transferred back to the Department of Home Affairs. So this is another date of ministerial appointment issue.
Yes.
You say at your paragraph 5.5 of the correcting affidavit that this was not within your personal knowledge. It's a repetition of the point previously made, correct?
Yes.
Then you deal with paragraph 44 of your main affidavit at page 1009. It says it is publicly known that Mr. Gigaba, during his term as Minister of the Department of Home Affairs, had approved early naturalization of members of the Gupta family. In your correcting affidavit at paragraph 5.6, you say the information contained in this paragraph was not within my independent and personal knowledge. You can't vouch for it. The information has been provided by the Commission through Investigate. Do you confirm that? And then the last correction that you want to make relates to paragraph 55.2. And 55.2 you find at page 1012, where you say on several occasions, I had also personally observed Mr. Gigaba transferring money from his brown and black leather bags into his brown leather personal carry bag. You attach similar examples, and then it goes on to say he would later use the cash from his personal carry bag to pay for our meals at restaurants. Now, the correction that you wish to make, you find at a paragraph numbered 5.1 at the top of page 1027.13. Having read this paragraph, it is clear that the information I provided was not adequately and/or properly captured, to the effect that I had indeed seen the bag being carried out of the Gupta residence several times. But I had only seen Mr. Gigaba transfer cash from the big bag to his carry bag only once.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's the point you want to make.
Yes.
So those then are your concerns and your corrections.
Yes.
Now, in the balance of this affidavit, you go on to deal with a different issue. And that perhaps I can pick up at paragraph 8 at page 1027.13. The submissions and or suggestions made by Mr. Solomon.
I'm sorry, what page, Mr. Mata?
Page 1027.13, Chairperson.
Okay.
The submissions and or suggestions made by Mr. Solomon SC on behalf of Mr. Gigaba in his address to the Commission were that I cannot be a reliable witness as I am an unhappy and or bitter spouse going through a divorce, and that as a result my evidence will only serve my bitter purpose to seek to get to Mr. Gigaba. And you say at paragraph 9, this narrative and or suggestion cannot be further from the truth. I wish to demonstrate this point by providing a chronology of events. Is that right?
Yes.
Could you take us through that chronology of events, please?
So must I read it from 9.1?
You can read it or you can narrate it for us.
Okay. So what happened in 2020, earlier, last year, I went to Mr. Gigaba. I told him that I want a divorce, which then he said why I want a divorce. So I explained the reasons why I wanted a divorce. So I have my personal reasons why I was not happy in the marriage, and I think it was good for both of us to get a divorce, and also it was good for our kids to grow up in a positive environment. So then he said he's not ready for a divorce because he was busy preparing for the state capture, and also he was busy doing his submissions for his PhD. And thirdly, he said he was not ready for a divorce at all because he had a lot of distractions because he had to focus on preparing for the state capture. So then he asked me
I'm sorry,
to
because
give
he
him
had to
time.
focus on?
Preparing for the state capture.
Oh, okay.
So then he asked me to give him time, and I agreed to that.
Yes.
So then, to continue that, so he came again to me, I think it was later in the mid of the year, also last year. He asked me, he was like, there was someone at home who's an expert in IT. He was asking for my gadgets, my cell phones, someone to wipe the information for us. So I asked why someone is wiping the information for us. So then he made an example, because he said he was about to finish to wrap up his evidence to the state capture. But now he's worried that the information that I have. So he made an example about Brian Mngoma. So he said to me, because as a family we were close to Brian, so that's why it was easy maybe for him to make an example about Brian. So he said to me, there was a time there was investigation about Brian Mngoma. He said he went to the Gupta house a few times. And then when there was an investigation, the investigation showed that he went to the Saxon compound more than 2 or 3 times. So he said he doesn't want that to happen to him because he wants to say he was there 2 or 3 times. So I said to him, why don't you tell the truth? Why don't you go to the commission and give the truth so that you don't have to say things and cover them up? He said he doesn't want to. So I said, okay, unfortunately, I won't be able to give you my devices because for me, I don't understand why he doesn't want to tell the truth. I even reminded him because I remember in Parliament, I think it was in 2017 because he resigned in 2018. I think it was EFF, they asked him how many times he has been there. He said he doesn't recall, but 2 or 3 times. And I remembered him in that evening, I was asking him, why I said you were there 2 times? Because we were always there all the time. So he didn't want to answer me on that day. So when he said the person was there to delete, then I said, I don't want to do that. And then it ended there on that day. I didn't give him my gadgets. And then, so I think a few weeks on the...
Please would you speak into the microphone so I can hear you?
Sorry. So then I refused to give him my gadgets because for me, I felt like why he must delete the information. So I thought it was easier for him to come to the commission to tell the truth so that we don't have to come up and team up. And also I asked him the other thing. I was like, why we can't divorce just because you are going to the commission? Because I didn't understand how I get involved with the commission. Because commission has never called me, there's nothing that involves me with any associates or with his work because I've never worked for government. So then he explained that like if we divorce, we're gonna lose a spousal privilege. So he wants to go to the commission while we're still married. So that brought confusion to me, but I said to him, I don't want to give him my gadgets. And it ended there. And he was a bit annoyed. So he went back. So that expert was in his study room. So I think they spoke, the guy left. A week or 2 weeks later, that's where everything started. And then it was the arrest, where I got arrested. So the Hawks came to our home because I sent a WhatsApp to Malusi's friend. So Malusi called me at home. He said, the police are calling me. So I went downstairs at home and they said they want all my gadgets. So I asked them, why you want all my gadgets? They said they want all my gadgets because I sent a WhatsApp message to Malusi's friend. And then I said, okay, I was carrying a phone, but not this one, a one before this upgrade. So I said to them, okay, here's the phone that I used, but I deleted the message. So they said they need to take the phone. I said, there's no problem, but this is the phone that I use. You can take it. They said, no, we want all your gadgets, and we need to go with you upstairs because we know that all your gadgets are upstairs. So I said, okay, I'm coming back. They said, no, I'm not allowed to go on my own. They have to come with me. So in the time, we all went, before we go upstairs, then I said, I want to go to the bathroom. And then they refused. They said, I'm not allowed to go on my own. Then I begged them that I can go to the bathroom. So then one police, I don't know, must I mention their names or I mustn't? I can. I don't know, must I mention their names or not?
Yeah. Mr. Mybeck?
I don't have any difficulty, but Ms. Gigaba, perhaps you could just speak to your affidavit,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Yes.
So what happened then?
So what
I
paragraph are you on now?
Sorry?
What paragraph are you dealing with now?
I'm on 9.4.
9.4?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, yeah. Continue.
Okay. So I went.
Yes. One of the
I
police
prefer.
officers.
I'm reading that, but it's just like I prefer to talk because everything
Yeah.
that I'm saying is what here
No, that's
than
fine.
to read.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I think what Mr. Mybeck is, he
Yeah.
just wants to know how much you have covered.
Okay,
but
yeah, I'm on
he's
the-
not saying don't speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can speak and.
So what happened? So they went upstairs with me. My kids were there with me, so we all went upstairs. Then we went to my bedroom. So then they said they want my iPad. So then I said I haven't used my iPad for 2 years because I used to use where I used to work. So then they said they want it, and they also told me that they want my laptop. Then I gave them my laptop. And then they asked me, where is my Huawei phone? I was just shocked because I didn't tell them that I have a Huawei phone. So they told me, where is my Huawei phone? So then I went with them in my walking-in closet, which it's my bedroom. Then you go in closer to the bathroom. So the police came with me. Then I took the Huawei phone, then I gave it to them. So they took all my phones, and all of us, we went downstairs. So when we were downstairs, they asked me to put my phones at the center of the table. They said they have to take all my gadgets, they have to leave with them. So then I asked them why all my gadgets need to be taken for a WhatsApp message. And I'm not denying that I sent the message. And here's the phone that I used. So why all the gadgets, and especially the laptop? And I even told them that I was using my laptop for school because I was writing exams at the time. So can they leave it? So they refused. They said they have to take everything. Then I asked them, can I call a lawyer? They said I'm not allowed to call a lawyer. Then I said, I know that right, each and every person in South Africa, you have a right to call a lawyer. They said that right only remains with SAPS, not with the hoax. They are the hoax, so I don't have that right. So, which they refused for me to call the lawyer, because I wanted to call the lawyer to ask why my gadgets were taken by the hoax. So after that, they asked me. So one of them was sitting on my right-hand side, other one was sitting on my left side, my left-hand side. And then so this one on the right, he said to me, I need to put all my password and my pins, and they want to make sure that my gadgets are working. And firstly, we had an argument because I said, no, why I have to give you my gadgets? Because if you're doing an investigation, you can take the gadgets, because I work in the IT industry. You can take the gadgets, you put them on the machine, you can be able to download everything. I don't have to give you my password and my pins. So they said I need to cooperate with them, because if I don't, I'm going to be arrested by that time. So I still wanted to argue with them, but I look at my son. My son was behind me because he was crying. I look at him, then I was like, let me just not fight, because I don't want my son to see this. Let me just give them my gadgets. So then we started. I give them my passcode, which they put. They wanted my PIN, they put them. We went through each and every gadget. They wanted to make sure they wrote them on the paper, all my pins and everything. And then after that, they took all my gadgets, 5 of them. They put them in a plastic. And then, so after that, they said, oh, we are here, there was a scratching of the car in the house. So the minute they say that, they said, oh, we need to take the gadgets, we are investigating something in the house, so we are going. So which they left with my gadgets on the day, all of them. Then after that, I asked the helper to give me the phone. I called a friend of mine who's a lawyer. I told her the whole story. Then he said, no, it's a lie. Hoax and SAPS, everyone in the country, you have a right to call the lawyer. And also, they're not supposed to take my gadgets just because I send a WhatsApp, or even if there was a scratch car at home. And that, it was that they left. I went to Malusi upstairs. He was sitting upstairs. Then I told them that these people, they took my phones. Why they are taking my gadgets? Malusi said to me, just let the police do their job. I was like, why? The police are doing their job. Why all that? Because I was just so confused. What have I done wrong? And they left with my gadgets. The whole week. So the whole week I kept on asking him, because I was writing exams. And that time we were on, I think on level 4, level 3. I was doing online classes and I need to submit my exams. And then I had nothing to use. And I couldn't go to study at my friend's place because that time we were not allowed to visit. But Malusi kept on telling me that, no, the police are working, they will bring back my stuff. And then the week ended. The second week, I called a friend of mine again. I asked her that, can you please get me a lawyer? I want to open a case because my gadgets are not back yet. And I don't understand. Malusi keep on saying, no, they are coming back. So then he said he's going to call the general manager, I think the Brigadier, which is Brigadier Ngwenya, those police who came, they're reporting to him. Malusi said he's going to call him to bring back my gadgets. And then I asked him 2 hours later, I said, what did he say? So he said, no, he can't call him, he needs to go meet him because the intelligence is listening to them and their phones.
And ultimately, when did they bring them back, or did they
my gadgets were
not
brought
bring
back.
them back?
They didn't. They only brought back my gadgets after I was arrested. That was 2 weeks later.
Mm. And when they came back, was the information that
Yes.
was the information still there? That
A lot of information was not on my gadgets.
mm-hmm.
So the kind of information that was deleted on my gadgets. Because the day I got arrested, I said to Malusi in the morning, if the police are not here today to bring my gadgets, because I've been waiting for you, I went to see a lawyer, and my lawyer, we're going to go open the case. If they're not here by 2 p.m., I'm opening a case, And you will explain that because I had everything that now this was unlawful. It was not supposed to happen. So on that day, we waited. Malusi said, no, they are on the way. Then he said, I'm going to help you with my own computer. So Malusi was typing my assignment. Then I was writing my other assignment. So which was 2 assignments I was doing at the same time because I was a bit behind, but the school understood. So what happened on that day, while I was waiting for them to bring my gadgets, Malusi came in the room. He said, the police are here looking for you. I jumped quickly and I was so excited. I thought they were bringing my gadgets. So when I got there, they said, you're under arrest. We need to arrest you now. I said, what have I done? They said, you're under arrest. And then I asked them that, can I go change? So they said, I'm not allowed to go alone. So they went with me, then I changed, then I got arrested on that day. And then...
And that was not the day they brought back your gadgets?
No.
And how long after that did they bring back?
They were brought back 3 days later on Tuesday. Because I got arrested on Friday, the 31st of July. So I couldn't get a bail on that day because when the Hawks arrested me, they switched off their phones. And also they were nowhere to be found. And they left the police station with the dockets.
Once the gadgets were back, were you able to establish whether the kind of information that you say Mr. Gigaba had said he wanted to be deleted was still there? Or
So I went on my phone on Tuesday after I appeared in court on Monday. So on Tuesday, we went to fetch my gadgets at police station. Then I started opening all of them. Then what I found out, everything Malusi, when he explained, when he said what we need to delete, everything that related to the Guptas and to the trips that we've taken as a family, to the car that was bought by the Guptas. So then I started paging to check. So they didn't delete everything, all my data, but what was deleted is all our trips that we did to Dubai, that the Guptas pay for us. And it was all the pictures of the car that the car that was given as a gift to him, and also it was a henna picture that I took at Sun City at their wedding, at the Gupta wedding. So most of all the information, it was related to that. So everything was deleted.
Okay, Mr. Maybach.
Yes, thank you. So to carry on with the chronology. At paragraph 9.5, you say that following this, about August 2020, I learned from the newspapers the announcement of divorce proceedings being instituted by Mr. Gigaba. The summons was only served on me in September 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
You go on to say that only on 17 December 2020 did I conduct a television interview with the ENCA, after which I was immediately contacted by the Commission on 18 December 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
So do I understand correctly from what you've told the chairperson that you were arrested on the 31st of July 2020?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
At paragraph 9.7, continuing with the chronology, you say, about January 2021, discussions on settlement ensued between me and Mr. Gigaba, as is normal in divorce matters, and with the principal aim of avoiding a long and protracted process of divorce. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
You go on to say that this is when the allegations of supposed extortion started flying around. I must indicate that I'm totally astonished at the utter suggestion that I would seek to blackmail or extort Mr. Gigaba in any form of settlement in respect of the divorce or into any form. As a matter of fact, I remained shocked as to what it is I would be seeking to achieve by such conduct. I say this for the following reasons. One, the house we live in is a rented house. Is that right?
Yes.
2, we are married out of community of property. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
3, the other house that Mr. Gigaba owns there is still a huge amount owed to the bank in respect of the bond. Is that right?
Yes.
4, the entire furniture in the house that we live in belongs to me. Is that correct?
Yes.
5, I am in no state or have any intention to fight with Mr. Gigaba, as we have 2 minor children together, whom I had even proposed to leave with Mr. Gigaba to avoid any further confrontation and dispute related to our divorce, and so as to expedite it. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
And 6, as confirmed in a letter from my attorneys to the Commission, there are no ongoing settlement discussions between the parties. It is therefore not clear what I stand to gain by assisting the Commission. Do you confirm all of that?
Yes, it's true.
Then you go on to say, I ought to highlight that the proposal I was making to Mr. Gigaba was that we should agree on the issue so that we can both move on with our respective lives. Indeed, the settlement discussions, which were even escalated to our respective attorneys, yielded no fruits and were accordingly abandoned. Is that right?
Yes, it's right.
And then you go on to deal with the High Court proceedings in respect of your arrest. You say, on 11 February 2021, the High Court, in the matter pertaining to my unlawful arrest by the Hawks, handed down judgment in my favour. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then at 11, on 6 March 2021, I filed an affidavit with the Commission which forms the basis of this supplementary affidavit. That's your main affidavit. Is that correct?
Yes.
And on 26 March, the NPA withdrew criminal charges against me, which were related to my unlawful and malicious arrest at the instance of Mr. Gigaba and his friends. Is that right?
Yes.
And in paragraph 10, you say, I lay out the above chronology to demonstrate to this Commission that the suggestion that I was a bitter spouse attempting to get to Mr. Gigaba through this Commission is not only malicious in the very least, but is misleading on the real issues before this Commission. You confirm that?
Yes.
Paragraph 11, the suggestion by Mr. Gigaba that his application was made so that he can shield our children from our squabbles before court lies on the face of truth. After all, it is not Mr. Gigaba who was the complainant in the case against me. Where, one would ask, was the consideration at the time to shield our minor children from the numerous appearances I was forced to make in the magistrate's court before the withdrawal of the charges, which appearances were solely occasioned by him. So there you're talking about, as I understand it, your unlawful arrest and
Yes.
what you had to go through in the process.
Yes.
At 12, I need to clarify that when I originally sought divorce from Mr. Gigaba, it was never out of bitterness, hence my agreement to not proceed with same at the time, after he had requested me not to. To suggest this now, conveniently so, is in my respectful view quite absurd, in the very least. And then you conclude, as repeatedly explained in the media and in my testimony, my sole reason for assisting the Commission is the performance of my civic duties as a citizen of South Africa, who is willing to provide any information to which I may be privy and which can rid our society of the cancer of corruption, would like my children to grow up in a corrupt-free society. I bear no grudges against anyone, and I have long forgiven those who wronged me. They will be judged not by me, but by God. You confirm that?
Yes.
Do you have anything you wish to add to this affidavit?
I'm fine. I think I'm fine.
All right. Now, Ms. Gigaba, I'm going to come back at the end of your evidence this evening to some of the things that you say at the beginning of the affidavit in relation to the Commission. I will also, in the process, take you through an affidavit that has been filed and deposed to by Sakile Masuku, who you find right at the end of your exhibit. But for now, what I want to do is to take you through Mr. Gigaba's evidence and put it to you and ask for your comment. Chairperson, what we've done, perhaps in a slightly unorthodox way, we've got two affidavits. I've asked my secretary to cut and paste them into a schedule. So what you will find on the left-hand side is Ms. Gigaba's affidavit, and I'll hand it up now, and on the right-hand side, Mr. Gigaba's affidavit. It's a much easier way of finding out what is in dispute and getting
Yes.
Ms. Gigaba's comment.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
I don't know if it has to be given any particular number. It's just an aid to presenting evidence. When I refer to paragraph numbers, it's of course to the numbers as you see there in the respective affidavits.
Well, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't have to be admitted as such.
Yes.
But it's fine as a matter of convenience to have.
So, Chairperson, if I could just then confirm for the record that on the left-hand side, there's a reproduction of Ms. Gigaba's main affidavit. That's the one that you find commencing at page 999.
Okay.
On the right-hand side is a reproduction of Mr. Gigaba's affidavit, and that's the affidavit that he filed in support of his application,
Yes.
which was indexed as SEQ 18
Yes.
of 2021. Ms. Gigaba, you have a copy of this schedule, do you?
Yes, I do.
All right. I want to start off by taking you, please, to paragraph 13 of your affidavit, and that you see at page 4 of the schedule. Are you there?
Yes.
And what you say at paragraph 13 is that about a month or two before Mr. Gigaba took up the position of Minister of DPE, he told you that he had been told of that move by AJ Gupta. You recall giving that evidence?
Yes.
Now, what Mr.
I note, Mr. Maybeck, that in the document says about 2 to 3 months rather than 1 or 2.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. 2 to 3 months before. Thank you, Chairperson. So you recall giving that evidence?
Yes.
At paragraph 35, this is then on the right-hand side, Mr. Gigaba says, the contents of this paragraph are pure, unsubstantiated speculation and are inserted to embarrass and prejudice me. And then he goes on to set out his version where he says that he was told on the 31st of October by the President that he was going to be appointed as the Minister of DPE and sworn in the next day. In short, what he says is, I got no advance notice, I didn't know of this before, and what you are saying is unsubstantiated speculation. Do you want to comment on that?
So it's not true that he didn't know, he only heard on the day. He told me 2 to 3 months before, and also because he was very excited about the position, I asked him what does it mean to be a Minister of DPE, because that kind of portfolio I was not familiar with. So then he explained to me that DPE means like public of enterprises. And then he explained to me that he's going to be overseeing all the SOCs. He explained with so much of excitement. So I think it took 2.5 to 3 months before he got his appointment. So it's not true what he's saying, that he knew only on that day.
Could I take you to paragraph 14 of your affidavit? You say there that Mr. Gigaba's visits to his advisors became more regular when he became the Minister of the DPE, often more than once a week. When I questioned him as to whether these were his official advisors, he then told me that the Guptas were his unofficial advisors, who would advise him in respect of decisions to be made at work, and in return, he assisted them with certain things. Mr. Gigaba's response is, the contents hereof are again a deliberate fabrication not based on fact. At this point in time, I'd known Nomshula for approximately a year. We were not even living together, and she would only on occasion come and visit me at my home, and we would go out socially. It is absurd to think in these circumstances I would have treated Nomshula almost as an advisor of mine, keeping her abreast of my movements as a minister. And then he goes on to say at 42, as a minister, DPE, I was entitled to 2 advisors. I also had top management of the department to advise me on matters. In these circumstances, why on earth would I have required the Guptas to be my special advisors? You want to comment on that?
It was not true that I was not staying in Pretoria at that time. I moved to Pretoria when I was pregnant. And when Malusi became the Minister of Public Enterprises, we were already staying together. And when it comes to this thing of special advisors, it was him who told me that the Guptas were his special advisors. And I remember in that beginning, I used to get confused when he talks about special advisors. Who are the advisors? Because sometimes you will say, I'm seeing my advisors, and then I see Tamim Somi. Sometimes you will say, I'm seeing my advisors, I'm going to Joburg, and I knew that Tamim was staying in Pretoria. Then I was like, who are the advisors you're talking about? So every time when you will talk, I always want him to make it clear who is he talking about. So it's not true that he never had one.
Then at paragraph 15, you say in your affidavit, in 2011, during his tenure as Minister of the DPE, I became unhappy with the little time that Mr. Gigaba was spending with our children because of his frequent evening visits to his advisors. Mr. Gigaba told me that it was important for him to meet his advisors. He told me that he would need to take work decisions on the day after his visits to them. He told me that they are responsible for the decisions at work. He explained to me that as things were happening at work, he needed to report to his advisors. Now again, Mr. Gigaba denies this. And I just want to draw your attention, please, to paragraph 45 of his affidavit, where he says to suggest that Nomshula became unhappy with the little time that Mr. Gigaba was spending with our children because of his frequent evening visits to his advisors, when we only had one child who was a newborn, demonstrates the length she's prepared to go to mislead. Do you want to comment on that?
It's irrelevant that he's arguing about the children. It's a mistake that I said our children. I said our child. Because Malusi was hardly at home. Most of the time when he arrived from Cape Town, he would just go, he would say, now I'm rushing to the season all the time. And then he knew that our son was very sick at the time. I needed him to be at home. So this is not true.
All right. You accept that it should have read child and not children?
Yes, we had one child in 2011.
And then I'd like your comment on the last sentence of his paragraph 45. I also posed the question, how would she have knowledge of these alleged visits? How did you have knowledge of the alleged visits?
Because he told me. So he's the one who used to tell me that where is he going, and he will explain when I ask them, where are you going, who are you meeting, then he used to explain it to me.
Right, and then your paragraph 16, this is where you deal with the frequency with which Mr. Gigaba visited the Guptas, and you explain the frequency when Parliament was sitting and then the frequency when in recess. Mr. Gigaba at paragraph 48 says, this is a total fabrication. It's not based on any personal knowledge on the part of Nomshula. Beggars belief that every time I went to Parliament, I'd first rush off to meet the Guptas, and then on my return report back to them. How did you know, on your version, how often Mr. Gigaba was going to the Guptas?
In my knowledge, he used to go there a lot. It's not true that he went there maybe
so my question is, how did you know?
He told me.
I see. Well, what would he typically tell you?
He will tell me that he's going to see his advisors, or he will say he's going to see AJ. And there were times where he will go there with his bodyguards without me, and there were times he will ask me to go with him.
All right.
So we were forever, most of the time we were forever there.
Then we deal with...
I'm sorry. Are you able to give an indication of about how many times he may have gone there with you over the period, leaving out occasions when he told you that he had been there, but you had to rely on his word. You were not there to see whether he was indeed there. So, but the times when you were there with him at the Gupta residence, are you able to say, to give an indication?
I can say an estimation because I don't know exactly the number, but I know it's more than 20 times. It's a lie that it was 4 or 3 times.
Yes.
Because we used to go there when Malusi have meetings, then I will sit and wait for him to finish meetings. And sometimes we'll go there for lunch where we will just sit with AJ, with their son, and also with the wife. There will be times where we'll just go, because Diwali, I only know one Diwali. So when Malusi is saying we used to go there for events, we only attended 2 events in the 10 years that I'm with him. So most of the time it's either lunch or his meetings, but we used to go there very often together.
So, and that would span from when to when in terms of years? When you say about 20 times, that's from 20 what? 2011, 2013, 2014, up to when?
So from 2011, I didn't go there a lot myself because I had a little baby. As well as 2012, I didn't go that much. So, but he used to go. Then sometimes we will go with the child when they want to see the child.
Your first time that you went there would have been which year?
I think it was 2011 when AJ wanted to see my son.
Okay, all right. And the last time when you went there would be?
I don't remember when was it, but it was when Malusi was taken back to Home Affairs. At that time, they were not that close anymore.
But you can't remember which year, but whatever year it was the year when he
went back
to Home Affairs.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And when you say 20 times, about 20 times, I accept that you are estimating.
Yeah, I'm not saying exactly it was 20.
Yes,
I think it was more than that.
But if somebody said, no, maybe 10 times, would that?
No, 10 times it's not.
10 times is
10
not.
times it's less, yeah.
It's more than that.
It's more than that.
So even if you are mistaken about 20 times, it can't be 10 times or less.
It can be 10 times. It's either from 20 upwards.
Yes.
Because we were frequently there.
Yes. Okay, all right. Mr. Mike.
Thank you. Now, let's deal with paragraphs 17 and 18 of your affidavit. Chairperson, the reason for the grey shading here is you'll see that Mr. Gigaba responds to a series of paragraphs. And so when the grey shading is repeated, it's the same answer, but it's in relation to a different one of those paragraphs.
No, that's fine.
So to summarize your paragraphs 17 and 18, you say that I first met his advisors and learnt of the identity during 2011. I think you've just said that to the chairperson, when Mr. Gigaba still held the position of DPE. And you go on to mention that during late 2011, Mr. Gigaba told you that his advisors wanted to meet you and your eldest son, who had been born in June that year. And you go on to explain that you then attended upon the Gupta residence, that you met with AJ Gupta, his wife and their son, and that AJ Gupta gifted your son a gold jewelry necklace. And then at 17.2, by way of summary, you say in 2012, you visited the Gupta residence on several occasions. And at sub 3, after I met the Guptas, Mr. Gigaba would tell me that he's either going to meet my advisors or AJ. And then at 18, you say, a few months after my second son was born, that being in December 2012, I visited the Guptas in their residence upon the invitation of Mr. Gigaba, You informed me that the Guptas would like to meet our second child. Do you confirm that?
Yes, it's
Now,
correct.
Mr. Gigaba says this is a total untruth. Why would the Guptas insist on meeting a newborn child? Now, do I ever recall that our eldest son, after his birth, received a gold necklace as a gift from AJ Gupta? Do you want to respond to the denial that you and Mr. Gigaba took your eldest son to meet AJ Gupta?
I don't understand why he's denying that, because when we got there, AJ was so excited to see him. The minute he held our son, he gave him the gift. It was in a box, then he took it out, he put it into my son, and then Malusi took it out, then he put it back on the box, and he carried it. So if they're not that close, why would AJ want to gift our son with the necklace? Because he doesn't even know it's a boy or girl if he doesn't know him. So I think this is a lie. So I don't even understand why he would, because they gave him the necklace and they wanted to see him when he was 3 months born, and I was asking why they want to see our child. But that's him who's denying it, but it's true. So it happened.
If I could ask you to go to paragraph 51 of Mr. Gigaba's response or affidavit. He says, I do not believe, and this goes to the chairperson's questioning of you a little earlier, I do not believe that Nomshula met the Guptas on more than 4 occasions when we attended social functions such as the Sun City wedding, the Diwali celebrations, and a cultural luncheon at their invitation. Any other suggestion on her part are total untruths. So he's putting it at you having met them 4 times. These were social occasions or functions. 1, Sun City wedding. 2, Diwali. And he also lists a luncheon. You want to comment on that?
I remain by my statement. What is not true, we never attended so many events there. Most of when we went there, it was meetings. And also, I only attended 1 Diwali, the Gupta's house, and I only attended 1 event. So it was not like we will go there because of events. There were less events in my knowledge. So most of the time when we were there, it was meetings between Malusi and AJ. And sometimes it will be his advisors will be there, and Malusi will be taken in a room. That's what used to happen. And I still remain by my statement.
Then at paragraph 54, he says, I deny frequent visits with the Guptas or indeed discussing such visits with Nomshula. Do you have anything to add to that?
Also, I still remain by my statement. I don't understand why Malusi is saying we didn't frequent visit there, because we used to go. And not only he used to go there by me alone, there were times where he will go with his protectors. There were even times where he won't go with the whole protection cars, because he had 2 cars. Sometimes he will ask one of the bodyguard, because he was close to one of them, he will ask him, Chief, can you please take me there? And I remember most of the time when that bodyguard used to come, he will say, okay, I want to sign first at the gate. And Malusi will call him, rush him not to sign, because he says he needs to rush, there's something they need to fix with AJ. So they will just go. So when they come back, then the bodyguard will want to go. There's a small house that was closer to our house where there's police. And then you will like, I want to go there because when I arrive, I didn't sign. Then Malusi will like, no, Chief, go, we'll sort that out. And then the bodyguard will leave. So it was, if I can count his with the bodyguard, because sometimes he will go 1 bodyguard, or he will go with the whole entourage, and we will go all of us. That's so many times. So it's not true that Malusi was there 2 or 3 times.
No, that's not what he's saying, Ms. Gigaba. He's saying you met the Guptas 4 times.
That's not true.
Yeah. You've told the DCJ that you went there more than 20 times.
Yes.
You've also, we know you went to the Sun City wedding. You've said you went to Diwali celebration. Did you also attend a cultural luncheon at the Guptas?
I don't know what is cultural luncheon.
Lunch. Did you go to a lunch at the Guptas?
But not like a cultural thing.
All right.
we'll have lunch as us, AJ and his wife, and my son and their son, but it was not like a cultural thing.
Right. So if we can go to paragraph 19 then of your affidavit, this is where you deal with your visit to the Waterkloof Air Force Base. Now, paragraphs 19 and 20, we know that you've corrected. You make the point that you went there a day or two before the wedding, and then on the day of the wedding, you went to Sun City. But in relation to your attendance at Waterkloof, at paragraph 55, on the right-hand side, Mr. Gigaba says, the contents here are denied. Nomshule is deliberately trying to link me to the infamous Waterkloof base landing. Not a single person or report has linked me to the Waterkloof base landing. I had nothing to do with the landing at the Waterkloof base. I had no knowledge of these visitors from India who were attending the wedding. I also have no authority over the Waterkloof Air Force Base. The suggestion is simply outrageous and demonstrates the lengths to which Nomshule is prepared to go. What's your comment on that?
This one, I still remain by my statement, which Malusi is not telling the truth. Myself and our son, in that evening when the aircraft landed. So Malusi said to me at home, let's go there. He has been asked. So I didn't ask who asked him to go receive the people. So he was, can you please go with me? And we went there. So what happened, myself and our son, the older one, we sat in the room, and then Malusi went out to receive the Gupta people coming in for the wedding. So it was not only us, because outside there were a lot of Metropolis cars who were coming to receive them as well, but they were outside. So me and my son, I remained inside. Malusi went out. I didn't know what he did on them. So they landed and they were taken by cars. So when they were leaving, then Malusi, we went to our car going home, and there were a lot of Metropolis like escorting the Gupta cars leaving, and then we went home. So for me, it doesn't even make sense why he wants to protect the Guptas, because we were there. I don't even know why he wants to protect that, why he say it was a lie, because we did it. We were there. We received them.
Now, paragraph 56 on the right-hand side, Mr. Gigaba responds to your version of the wedding and the removal of the henna pattern, etc. He says this is nonsense. And in the last sentence of that paragraph 56, he says, I refused the invitation to stay over at Sun City. Do you want to comment on that?
He didn't refuse. He forced us to leave because they booked us the house. So on the following day, I didn't know that we were going to go to the wedding. I didn't know that also we were invited on the wedding. So on the wedding day, I was at work. Malusi called me that I have to accompany him to go to Sun City. So then I said to him, no, he must leave me. I can't go because I haven't done my hair, everything. I just can't go to the wedding. I don't even have an outfit. Then he was like, no, we need to go. Let's go. So please come back home. So then I left work. I think it was around 1. Then I went home. Then I packed whatever I had. Then he said, we're going to sleep over. We'll come back the following day. So when we arrived in Sun City, there were a lot of people who were there for the wedding. And the other people were coming from India. Then AJ was busy introducing us to those people. But it was like everyone was mingling. And then I saw people doing like a henna, because I've never done that before. So I joined. I said to him, I'm coming back. So I did the drawing of the henna. And then by 9:10, we went to a room. Malusi said he's tired. Then we wanted to go rest in the room because we were supposed to sleep there, going back. I think by 12 midnight, Malusi said we need to leave. And also he said he received a call. He was shouting at me like why I posted the henna on Facebook. I said I didn't know that I shouldn't have posted it. And then he said I must go on my Facebook and delete the henna because now there's a lot of noise about us attending the wedding. So I went on my Facebook, I deleted the henna. Then after that, Malusi said, let's take our bags, we need to go back home, we're not sleeping. So it's not true that he refused to stay in Sun City. He was forced by that, then we had to leave. So we drove back at night with the bodyguards, came back to Pretoria.
Just to pick up on that, at paragraph 58 of his affidavit, Mr. Gigaba said, I deny that I asked her to remove the photo of the henna pattern on her hand off Facebook. Why would I have asked her to remove it when our attendance at the wedding was all over television and social media? The fact that I attended there would have been documented. Do you want to comment on that?
Malusi was not aware that our attendance was going to be on the news and there will be noise about it. He didn't know. So when that happened, he panicked. Then he said, I must delete it. And then also he said, let's go home. So if the way he's saying, like he knew that everything will be documented, so why we packed our clothes and why the room was booked, then all of a sudden why we have to drive in the middle of the night going back home. So he was not aware that such a thing will happen.
All right, if we go to your paragraph 22, that's where you describe what happens, the procedure that was followed when you visited the Gupta residence. You talked about turning in your cell phone, talked about a briefing by Mr. Gupta and then meetings being held in an adjacent room. I just want to ask you to comment on paragraph 60. Mr. Gigaba says, I deny that we were requested to hand over cell phones. It is absurd to suggest that one would be requested to hand over cell phones when attending a private event, and even more absurd that Nomshula's cell phone was simply returned to her when she got bored. Do you want to comment on that?
So also that is not true, and I even asked them so many times why we had to leave our cell phones, because when you come in, there was a table, I think 2 tables before you proceed to a big living room where they used to leave me, and AJ where he used to come and brief Malusi there before they go to another room that was opposite where he used to leave me. So before when we go in, they used to ask us to leave our phones. And then the other day I asked them why they always take my phone, because the whole hour, because those meetings used to last like an hour, 2.5, and then I'm sitting there by myself and Malusi is there in the meeting and I'm bored. So I asked them why our phones. So he said there was a confidential information which we're not allowed to have our phones with us. But most of the time, I used to go, maybe 30 minutes later, I used to go take my phone and sit down with it. And Malusi never liked those things. So it's a lie when he said our cell phones were not taken. It's him who knows what was confidential, but I didn't know what was confidential. But that's not true. And also I don't even understand why he keep on protecting or covering the Guptas, because that was the procedure that was happening there.
At paragraph 61, the second sentence, he says, it's a total fabrication to suggest that I was then ushered into a private meeting room after being briefed by Mr. AJ Gupta. What do you say to that? So he denies that he was ushered into a private meeting room after being briefed by Mr. AJ Gupta. So
also this is not true. So every time we used to arrive, and it happens most of the time we go there. So when we go, there's someone who will take us outside, and then they will ask us to leave our phones, then they will take us in the room. So maybe like 5 minutes or so, then AJ used to come and greet us, maybe just like make a few little jokes, or sometimes we will wait for a tea or something, and then AJ will sit next to Malusi while I'm there, and maybe he will brief him about something, about what that meeting. So there are times where Tami will be there, which works in his office, or sometimes Siyabonga Mahlangu will be there also, and they will be waiting with him, and they will go with Malusi into the room. So I don't understand why he's saying that never happened, because we never been received by AJ from the door. We were always received by other people, and AJ will always come while we're sitting, and AJ will brief Malusi so that he know what the meeting is about, and they will take him in. So that was the normal procedure. Unless if it's not a meeting, it's a lunch, we go, we're chilling, we're sitting there, then they won't take into a meeting. So that was a normal procedure in that home.
He says at paragraph 62, I deny that on these occasions Mr. Mhlanga and Mr. Masomi were present and would attend meetings with me. What do you say to that?
They were there.
All right. Then, if I can take you to paragraph 25. And this again deals with the briefing by Mr. A.J. Gupta of Mr. Gigaba. And you set out in paragraph 25 the various things that you overheard during those briefings. What Mr. Gigaba says in response at paragraph 63 is that the contents hereof are emphatically denied. Her version that on the one hand there were these clandestine meetings where cell phones had to be handed over, and yet on the other, prior to the meeting commencing, Nomshula was privy to an entire briefing session where the purpose of the meeting was disclosed in her presence, is so improbable as to warrant outright rejection. What do you say to that? So he rejects outright your version that there were these briefing sessions in your presence.
AJ used to brief Malusi in front of me, and then they will go there. So the entire meeting never happened in front of me because AJ used to take him inside the room where they used to have meetings.
It says at paragraph 65 that a lot of what is described here are matters that have been in the media for a number of years and would account for Nomshula's knowledge thereof. I deny that during my 10 years Minister of DPE I ever intended or indeed travelled to India, etc. What do you say about the contention that what you say he was briefed about were things that had been in the media for many years? You drawing on the media to back this up?
I don't even understand why he will talk about the media, because at our home, Malusi didn't even allow us to watch the news most of the time, or also maybe read the newspapers as well. So everything that I said, it's something that I've seen, or that is something that he told me. So I've never go to the media and go collect information about him. What I've given here is something that I've seen, and it's something that I heard from him that he told me. When it comes to the India trip happened when Malusi was taken back to Home Affairs, but I know a couple of times when AJ will tell Malusi, when he was still at DPE, he will say, you need to go meet those people, and also I want to know what's the feedback between the SAA. And sometimes they will argue. Malusi say, I remember Malusi saying to him, I can't go with the state visit to go meet those people because AJ wanted them to cancel the airline, the SAA airline, and put the Mumbai airline. And Malusi said he can't go on his own. He needs to justify the trip. And then AJ will be like, no, you can go with the entire. Then Malusi was like, he can't do that because he needs to justify the trip. So they used to have like a back and forth, how Malusi would go to Mumbai doing that airline, and sometimes they will have a back and forth with him. It's him and also with Dudumieni. So there were discussion most of the time where they will talk about that before the trip. And then Malusi was taken back to Home Affairs before he traveled to India. But the trip happened when he was at Home Affairs. We went to India.
Well, did you say he didn't want you to watch the news on television or read the newspapers at home?
Yeah, most of the time, besides his work purpose, our marriage were more exposed to a lot of scandals, which sometimes if I come, I tell him that, Malusi, I saw this maybe in the paper, what's happening? Because most of the time, when something will be on the paper, Malusi would never tell me. So I will hear maybe when people are sending me messages also about what happened, because Malusi will do the whole statement in public without even telling me what's happening. So I will see things when it's already trending, because he never told me what was happening. So because of that, he wanted us not to read papers so that we avoid of seeing things that have been said about us. Because since we got married in 2014, like our family has been in papers for his scandals most of the time. So then he didn't want us to read newspapers. So it's just so untrue for him that I got that from outside.
So what would happen? Because he would need to watch news or read newspapers. Did he not watch news as far as you knew in the house?
Most of the time, I will watch news when Malusi is in Cape Town, because it was not most of the time Malusi was at home, because from Tuesday to Thursday he was in Cape Town.
Okay.
Then I'll be alone. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Mr. Maida.
Thank you. At paragraph 26 of your affidavit, you say that at some stage Mr. Gigaba told me that AJ Gupta wanted to get rid of Mr. Dahms. And you say that you asked Mr. Gigaba why, and he said that the Guptas didn't like him because there are things that he was supposed to do but did not do. Mr. Gigaba responds at paragraph 70 by saying, "This is again a total fabrication. I deny the discussion with Nomshula alleges that I had with her concerning Dahm's employment. I emphasize that I didn't discuss government business with her. Furthermore, her version cannot be accepted as true. I never had any discussion with AJ Gupta concerning Mr. Dahms, who at a point in time was the CEO of Eskom. I've made a submission in this regard to the Commission." What do you have to say to that?
Also, this is not true on his side, because I remember AJ saying to Malusi, he needs to put pressure on Brian Damis so that Brian Damis must resign, can resign. And Malusi, what I remember, Malusi was very fond of Brian Damis. Even myself, we like him at home because he was such a nice guy, very chilled. Although I don't know his work that much because I was not following his work. But the Guptas didn't like Brian, and Malusi liked Brian. And every time when they used to talk, Malusi and AJ, then Malusi would like, why they don't want, then AJ will tell Malusi that no, there are certain things that he's not doing. And also, I asked them why they don't like him, because to me, he appears as a nice guy, as much as I didn't know his job. Malusi said that there were things that he was not doing, and AJ, they wanted him to do. And AJ was asking Malusi to put pressure on Brian so that Brian can resign and leave Eskom. And in a couple of months, it happened, because I remember Malusi told me that Brian was leaving, and it was sad. And I knew he didn't like it, but they put pressure on him.
Could I take you to paragraph 28? Dealing with meetings at our home, you said that during 2013, Mr. AJ Gupta met with Mr. Gigaba at our then official residence. You saw him there at most twice. Meetings took place in an underground room or bunker. And this is emphatically denied. Do you want to comment on that?
So this one is, he can call it whatever he calls that room. But it's the only room that you take the stairs, then you go downstairs. Because all our rooms in the State House, they are on top, which is on the top surface. And that room, it goes down, and it has Malusi's safety, and also it has where Malusi usually holds his meeting. So when AJ he came at our home 2 times. And I remember, because when Malusi said I must come and say hi to him, then I wanted to offer him something to eat, and he refused. Then I said to Malusi on the second time, because also he refused to eat, I was like, I just don't like this thing of AJ, he doesn't eat here. But when we go to their house, they always, even when we say we don't like, because most of the time they like vegetarian food, and I don't like vegetarian food. So they will say, no, try this. And Malusi was like, no, you can, even when you don't like it, just try. But when he came to our house, he didn't even want to try. So I remember having that conversation with him, why AJ doesn't want to eat when he comes to our house, but when we go to their house, then we have to eat their food. So it's a lie when Malusi said AJ never came to our house. He came twice.
At 29, you then go on to narrate what Mr. Gigaba told you they were meeting about. Transnet tenders and an Eskom project that was giving him a headache. Mr. Gigaba responds at paragraph 73 by saying the contents hereof are again a total fabrication. I've stated above that I had absolutely nothing to do with tenders in SOEs. Ministers are far removed from procurement and supply chain processes in their departments, let alone in the SOEs. I therefore deny any discussion about a headache concerning an Eskom project with Nomshula. You want to comment at all or stand by what you've said?
I stand by what I said, especially when I say it gives me a headache. There was this project called Egusile. It was at Eskom. And I remember most of the time that project at Egusile used to give Malusi a lot of time. Then he would go discuss things with AJ, and I would be there as well when they were talking. But he was saying, like, I don't know what was giving him a lot of time about Egusile projects. And I even remember when Malusi left, that project was not completed. But I even remember Malusi went and visited that project with his team at Eskom. So I knew because I was there when they were talking. So when he's answering this, he's just like giving like a general that ministers are not allowed, but he was involved.
Well, can I take you back to what you say in paragraph 28? You say that the meetings between Mr. Gigaba and Mr. Ajay Gupta took place in an underground room or bunker at our home. I see that in paragraph 72 of his affidavit, he says, I deny that there was any bunker or underground room at my official residence. This is vindictive speculation. How can there be dispute between the two of you about whether or not there is a room underground?
Maybe he can call it with his own way, but that house is still there because it was a state house.
Yeah.
It's still there. So he can call it the way he wants to call it.
Yes.
I call it underground because all our rooms, they are on top, everything.
Yes. Yes.
But there's one room that you take the stairs, you go down,
Yes.
and when you go out, you go to the pool. That was
Yes.
only that room, and that was the room that Malusi used to hold meetings.
Yes.
So if someone comes at home upstairs, you won't see Malusi, who is he meeting with, because
Yeah.
the house is just
Yes.
and that house is still there.
That room is the only one that is at
Yes.
that level.
Yes.
The others are on the
Yeah,
upper
others
level.
are on top, all of them.
Yeah.
Then is the only one, you just take the stairs, you go down.
Yeah.
And then there's a balcony.
Yeah.
Then when you stand at the balcony, then you see the pool.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but is it on the same level as the ground level if you are outside of the house, or is it below the ground level if you are outside the house?
Also, how the house is built. So when you come in, if you walk in, you won't know that you can still go down.
Yes.
So you will
okay.
think you are just here.
Yeah.
And when you go further in the house, you can take the steps on the other side of the house.
Yes.
Then there's other rooms, but they're upstairs, but there's another wing of the house.
Yes.
So when you come in at home, you won't know that you can go
You can
down.
still go down.
Yes.
Okay.
But it was the only house. This the way the
Yes.
house was built.
Okay, all right. Okay, Mr. Maitek?
Thank you. Then at paragraph 30, you say that Mr. Gigaba invited staff from his office at the Department of Home Affairs to our residence prior to the trip to Mumbai and New Delhi, India, and he denies that. Have you got anything to add to that, or do you stand by what you've said?
So he did invite his staff, and what happened, what I said to him, because when he has these meetings with his staff, because when he has the staff meeting, he will have people from the ministerial, which is people that are close working with him, and maybe he will have maybe one person or two people from the department, because the ministerial team are different from the department people. So then what I said to him, I was like, when you have these people, we don't want to, because sometimes I don't know, Malusi is going to host these people. And then people, they just come in the evening. Then now I have to make sure that I have to accommodate them. Then where Malusi started, so his PA used to come early and prepare for that. Then he will order takeaways. And on that room that I'm talking about, then because there was a 8-seater table, so then he will come and order and prepare so that everyone, when they come, they have water, they have snacks and everything. So they used to order takeaways because he never told me prior to the meeting.
I'd like now to turn to your paragraph 30.2, and this is not something, as I remember, that we dealt with thoroughly in your initial evidence. It's the India trip, and that's because of the error in the date.
Okay.
Your correcting affidavit corrects paragraph 30.2 by saying instead of during or about 2010, it's 2015.
Yes.
I accompanied Mr. Gigaba, I will take you through this, and other government officials on a trip to Mumbai and New Delhi, India. Before the trip, I overheard Mr. Gigaba complaining to Mr. A.J. Gupta that he could not go on a trip to India because he was still at the Department of Home Affairs. Well, in 2015, Mr. Gigaba was at the Department of Home Affairs. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I think we've discussed in consultations that the word still needn't be there.
Yes.
I overheard Mr. Gigaba complaining, this is your version, to Mr. A.J. Gupta that he could not go on a trip to India because he was at the Department of Home Affairs. Is that right?
Yes.
Therefore, he could not justify a trip to discuss a new flight route between South Africa and India, which was a matter that fell under the DPE. That was his previous portfolio.
Yes.
At a later stage, Mr. Gigaba mentioned that he would create an official state visit to India whilst at the Department of Home Affairs so that he could meet the Indian nationals that Mr. A.J. Gupta wanted him to meet in relation to the South Africa/Mumbai route. Then you say at 30.3, in India, Mr. Gigaba and Mr. Masomi attended various meetings. I did not see with whom they met as I was out shopping when they attended the meetings. Then at 30.4, Mr. Gigaba later told me in 2010 that the Guptas wanted to introduce their own airline to service the Johannesburg-Mumbai flight route, and that the Guptas were demanding that he compel SAA to cancel their Johannesburg-Mumbai route. Mr. Gigaba did not support. Now, when you say he later told me, we're dealing with 2015 in paragraph 30.2. When did he tell you this?
So the first time I heard about the Mumbai airline and the SA airline, Malusi was at DPE at that time. So he used to talk about that they need to cancel SA airline and then they need to bring Mumbai airline. And that's where most of Malusi's arguments, if I can put it that way, with Miss Tutumieni, it was more of that because they used to argue about it. Then Malusi will...
Ms. Gigaba, I want us to deal with the correction that needs to be made to 30.4.
Yes.
So it's not later.
Yes.
Do I understand you to be saying that he told you this during his tenure as the Minister of DPE?
So when it comes to dates, I explain in our consultation.
Just bear with me.
About the years.
I'm trying to get rid of the dates.
Yes.
He told you whilst he was the Minister of the DPE.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, let's go to his version. Of course, he deals with the error in the date, the 2010. He makes the point that there was a trip in 2015. Then he says at 77, during that trip I officially opened the Visa Facilitation Center in New Delhi, reached an agreement with the minister to open more visa facilitation centers in order to expedite visa applications. He visited an e-passport factory, met with the Minister of Home Affairs, etc. He says, I had no discussion with A.J. Gupta about this trip. I also did not complain to Nomshula about any demands concerning the trip. He says at 78, the suggestion that Nomshula overheard me complaining to A.J. Gupta that I could not go on a trip to India because I was still at the Department of Home Affairs is nonsensical. As stated above, I did go on my second trip to India whilst I was the Minister of Home Affairs. This had absolutely nothing to do with the South African Mumbai route. It is ridiculous to suggest that I could not justify a trip to discuss a new flight route between South Africa and India, which was a matter that fell outside my jurisdiction as Minister of Home Affairs, but was under the DPE. So the long and the short of it is he says that this trip had nothing to do with the South Africa-Mumbai route. He went there and he performed the work of the Minister of Home Affairs by visiting visa facilitation centers, visiting an e-passport factory, etc.
He did that, but he knew that he had to come up with something so that he can justify why he went there. And I remember he went there with the team because we stayed maybe 2 or 3 days in New Delhi. Then a few days later, we moved to Mumbai, where we stayed at Sofitel Hotel. So when we were in Mumbai, then Malusi, that's where he did his own meetings, because when we're in the room, he would say, because he was tired, because when we're in New Delhi, it was raining so hard, it was flooding. And then Malusi was going with his team, and then some of the meetings, I don't know, he did it alone, so I can't say that. But when we're in Mumbai, then Malusi was tired, and he was like, I need to go do these meetings, AJ arranged this. So he would leave the hotel, our room, and go downstairs to meet the people that AJ arranged for him to meet when we're in Mumbai. So maybe he won't declare all the trips, but there were trips, there were meetings that he did that AJ arranged for him. But he couldn't leave South Africa only for those meetings. So he had to take the whole department with him so that he can justify that.
So which year are we talking about when the trip happened? Was it in 2010?
2015.
2015. Okay. So he had stopped being Minister of Public Enterprises in 2014 when the elections happened, and after that he became Minister of Home Affairs.
Yeah, he was taken back.
Yeah.
Home
Okay.
Affairs.
Okay.
All right. So let's go to paragraph 31. Here you deal with prior knowledge of appointments. And what you say is that after a New Age breakfast session, Mr. Gigaba told me that Mr. Molefe was going to move from Transnet to Eskom. I was told this before Mr. Molefe was officially appointed to Eskom, etc. And then at 31.2, you said that Mr. Gigaba told me that Mr. Gama would be appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of Transnet. In your evidence, you corrected that to say that he would be taken back as the CEO of Transnet Freight Rail. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then at 31.3, you say, or said that Mr. Gigaba also told me that he intended to speak to Mr. Gama to appoint his sister, Ms. Gugu Gigaba, to Transnet. You say, to the best of my knowledge, Ms. Gugu Gigaba was appointed and remains in the employ of Transnet. And then at 31.4, you said, on many occasions, Mr. Gigaba informed me that the Guptas knew and had told him about who would be moved from and appointed to SOEs. Now, Mr. Gigaba says at paragraph 81 that this is a total fabrication. At the time when Mr. Molefe became CEO of Eskom and Mr. Gama became the CEO of Transnet, he had left the DPE. You want to comment on that?
But he knew before he became the CEO of Eskom. Malusi told me.
All right.
So he knew before.
Then he says at paragraph 83, I must immediately deny that I told Nomshula that, there's a word I missing there, intended to speak to Mr. Gama to appoint my sister, Ms. Gugu Gigaba, to Transnet. My sister was appointed at Transnet long after I'd left DPE, after following due process, and remains in the employ. You want to comment on that?
Yes. When Gugu was given a boarding at SAPI, Malusi said, no, you can take it then. I will talk to Gama to he will find something for you. I didn't say Malusi was at DPE when this is stuff, but what I know of, Malusi spoke to Mr. Gama to find work. And also what I remember, Kuku came to stay with us in Joburg before he even found a job. So he came, I think he stayed with us for a month or 2 months or so at our home before he got a job at Transnet. So when he left KZN, the job was not there yet, but Malusi said he must move her stuff. Then he moved her things, he came to stay with us at home before he started the job.
Well, you just said that what you know is that Mr. Gigaba spoke to Mr. Gama.
Yes, that's what he said.
But that's actually not true because you were not there when he spoke to him. It's what he told you, is that right?
Yes, he told me that.
Yeah, okay.
Then under the heading Tensions Arising at paragraph 32, you said that as Mr. Gigaba's tenure as Minister of the DPE progressed, he often told me that the Guptas were putting pressure on him to take certain decisions with which he didn't agree. And you mentioned a number including Mr. Dharma's, etc. And then he says at paragraph 85 in response, this is once again a total fabrication. I deny ever discussing being put under pressure by anyone concerning appointments. As Minister of DPE, it was my duty to defend the appointments that Cabinet had made. There was no one that could tell me who to appoint and who to dismiss. I again deny the allegation that the Guptas were my advisors, and accordingly Nomshula is lying when she says that she raised this issue with me. You want to comment on that?
So what he's saying, like, it's not true, because Malusi told me these things, and I will never come up and give the word advisors to the Guptas. So it's him who told me the Guptas are his advisors. I think the other day I even asked him why you call them advisors and why you always rush to go there and you go to work, you have to go to Cape Town. And I remember there was a time when Malusi was at DPE, then AJ will call Malusi and Malusi will ignore his calls. And I asked him, like, what's wrong? Why now you ignoring? Because in the beginning, when he was appointed, he loved taking their calls, he loved us going there. But later, before he leave, he didn't have like a good relationship with them. Then I asked him, what's wrong? Then he said, they putting pressure on him. And there was a time where AJ reminded Malusi, he said, remember why you were appointed, because Malusi will argue. I remember the other time, Mr. Tumieni didn't like Kalawa. He used to call Malusi and he would complain about him. And Malusi loved Kalawa as a CEO during that time. And AJ also, they didn't like Kalawa. And there was a lot of things between Eskom, Transnet, where AJ, they will want Malusi to do certain things and Malusi didn't want. And then AJ, one day, he told him that Malusi, he must remember why he was appointed to those sources. So it's a lie when he says he never, he had a headache. Later, before he left, he was taken back. The relationship was not like it was in the beginning. So what happened? In the beginning, he was excited. After a year, when he was at DPE, Malusi wanted to run the department the way he wanted. And AJ, they wanted him to run things the way they wanted. And they had the conflict most of the time.
So did you get the impression that the conflict between them that you're talking about was because Mr. Gigaba was resisting Ajay Gupta's attempts to get him to run the department the way he wanted and not the way Mr. Gigaba wanted?
Yes, because I remember there was a time when Malusi will be like, in the evening, he will come home, then he's tired, and then he will say the reason he doesn't like the Guptas being involved in his job. So he has a PA, he planned his diary. So according to him and his PA, he knows how his diary works and his ministerial team. And he has some meetings with his deputy and other people. But now when AJ calls, so AJ will demand Malusi to just leave everything. And then it put Malusi in pressure, under pressure, because Malusi was complaining that it makes him look unprofessional because now he will ask his PA to cancel the meeting and maybe people, they were coming somewhere to see him. So now it was just disorganizing everything. That's the other thing that he didn't like. And also what I've noticed, it was, Malusi likes certain people like Brian Dames, Monabisi Kalawa. Also, he had a good relationship with Brian. We become family, all of us. And even with Gama, we attended their wedding. So certain people, when they were moved, during like sometimes restructuring, Malusi didn't like it because he always have a team, how he works with them, and then now those people are being removed, so he didn't like that.
So at paragraph 33, you continued really with that theme, where you talked about the relationship becoming strained, again around Mr. Dharmas, Mr. Gigaba starting to avoid telephone calls, being called to the Gupta residence, and the fact that Mr. Gigaba told you that AJ told him that if he wanted to run the DP as he wished, he would be moved back to the Department of Home Affairs. And you conclude by saying, I understand that Mr. AJ Gupta would often tell Mr. Gaba that he should remember why he was appointed at the DPE. And the response to that is, this is once again a fabrication. I think it's something that you've already addressed. Is that correct? You've addressed this issue.
I addressed this, and I remember my statement.
Do you have anything to add?
Sorry?
Do you have anything to add in relation to that?
I don't understand why he's denying this whole thing, because it was very stressful on him. And also the stress, because I remember at that time where he was so stressed when AJ will want Malusi to do this and this, then there was a time Malusi would go to Rosebank Hospital because he started having migraines, a lot of them, where he would just go there, he needs to take injections for his migraines. So his work became like, he couldn't control, he didn't have a control of his work. He wanted to work to do his work, but he couldn't disagree with them, because I remember the other time when he had a migraine, then I even asked him, why don't you tell them that you don't want to do it? Then he said he can't. So it came, he would go to the second compound even when sometimes he didn't want to, sometimes he will avoid his call. And there were times where Tammy will come at home, we will tell that AJ says you don't answering the calls, no, you must try, he needs to go, and then he will do it. But their relationship was not like when he was appointed in the beginning. So it changed a little bit, because Malusi, he felt like they were interfering in his job.
All right, if we can go to paragraph 34. You talk about Miss Mngoma having facilitated your honeymoon trip, and you say he would often meet with her at the Sheraton Hotel for lunch, and thereafter would go to the Gupta residence. He says at paragraph 89 that I only had one meeting with Miss Mngoma at the Sheraton Hotel. How do you know that he would often meet her at the Sheraton Hotel for lunch?
Because I will go with him. So what happens, Mr. Dumieni used to book a room at Sheraton Hotel, and myself and Malusi will go there. Then they will have a meeting, then I will sit there. Sometimes we will have like sometimes you will ask me, how are the boys, are they growing? And then after that, then I will sit, and then they will talk, have their own meetings. So they will used to book a room, but to used to book a room, then Malusi will come in, then they will have a meeting.
Then at the end of 89, the remainder of the allegations are denied. So what that means is that Mr. Gigaba is denying that Ms. Mngoma facilitated your honeymoon. Do you stand by your evidence in that regard?
Yes, I stand by my evidence.
The Sheraton Hotel, is it the one in Pretoria?
The one in Pretoria.
Okay.
Then at 35, you said at a later stage, Mr. Gigaba informed me that there was some disagreement between him and Ms. Mngoma about certain decisions pertaining to the direction of SAA, which resulted in tensions between them. He says this is a total fabrication.
Even as we stand right now, they don't get along. If they can do that, they will be just pretending. Because I remember when Malusi was taken back at Home Affairs, he was very angry. He felt like the president was influenced more by Dudumieni, because Dudumieni also repeated the words that were said by AJ, that if Malusi doesn't want to take instructions, he will be taken back. And Malusi was like, he will never touch me. Because in his head, he had that impression that he comes first to the president. All the other ministers were just... So every time when maybe the reshuffle will happen, Malusi was forever... He always thought he will never be, touched, or he will be like maybe the first preference to be given. So when Dudumieni and AJ Gupta said Malusi will be taken back, so he said something like that will never happen. So when it happened, he was very angry, and he said he knows it got the influence from Dudumieni. He had the influence on the president to take him back.
At
That
37,
is now to transfer him back to Home Affairs.
Yes, because on that day, I remember when he came back at home, so he was called in the evening, and he was told that he's going to be taken back to Home Affairs. So he was going to be no longer a minister of DPE. When he came back home, he was so angry, and he just went back to the bedroom. And then I said, what happened? What did he say? I thought he was fired, the way he was so devastated. Then he said, no, they're taking me back to Home Affairs. So, and I know it's just because of Dudumieni and the Guptas. Then I said, why you didn't tell them? Why you didn't tell the president? He said, I couldn't raise those things because they were top 6 around there. So I didn't want to say those things. Then I asked him, I said, what did the president say to you when he was taking you back? What was the reason? Then he said, the president said, Malusi needs to tighten the borders.
at paragraph 37, you said that on Sundays, Mr. Gigaba and I would regularly have lunch in Sandton. When driving to return home, I would overhear Mr. Gigaba's telephone discussions with Ms. Mngoma. He would sometimes share the detail with me, and included in that was that he didn't understand why Ms. Mngoma had been appointed as the chair of SAA, because he didn't believe she was competent. And then you go on to say various other things. But at paragraph 92, he says, this is once again a total fabrication. I did not have any such discussions with Nomshula as stated in paragraph 37.1. In any event, why would I question Ms. Mnyene's appointment as the chairperson of the board of SAA when it was in my capacity as the Minister DPE who recommended her appointment to cabinet? You want to comment on that?
Also, what is
So he's saying I wouldn't call her incompetent because I recommended her appointment.
So he used to say that a lot. He used to say he doesn't understand why the president made Dudumieni as a chairperson of SAA, because Malusi felt like Dudumieni didn't understand the job, and also he was interfering in the SAA board. He even mentioned that sometimes he will go attend the meetings at the board, and he will take some of the information and give it to Baba before it was given by people who need to give Baba the information. And also there was a lot of, they didn't get along most of the time, Malusi and Malusi used to question. He was like, I don't like the way she works, she doesn't understand the job, I don't understand why the president appointed her. So that's him used to say that to me.
You just used the word Ubaba. Who are you referring to?
That's him used to call president like that.
Okay. All right.
In paragraph 38, you say that Ms. Mngoma told Mr. Gigaba that if he did not do as he was told, he would go back to the Department of Home Affairs. He says at paragraph 95, there was a rumor to this effect, and this is presumably Nomshula's source of information. I deny having discussed any of this with her. What do you say to that?
I don't know the rumor, and I don't know anyone in this house knows that kind of rumor. I only know this thing from him,
And how did you know this?
because he told me.
Then at paragraph 40, dealing with Mr. Gigaba's return to the Department of Home Affairs, you said, Mr. Gigaba did not believe that the former president would transfer him back to the Department of Home Affairs because he believed that they shared a very close relationship. I think this is something you've already expanded upon. At paragraph 97, Mr. Gigaba says, I don't even know how to respond to this. It is simply ludicrous. Got anything to add to that?
Because he doesn't know how to respond because it's true.
Then at paragraph 41, you said that Mr. Gigaba therefore appeared very shocked and hurt when his transfer was announced after the 2014 elections, and you explain that the former president told Mr. Gigaba in front of the ANC top 6 leaders the reason he was being moved back. Mr. Gigaba didn't believe it, etc. And at paragraph 98, Mr. Gigaba's response was, this is again a total fabrication and pure unfounded speculation. I do not know when it is that I appeared shocked. Furthermore, one is never appointed in front of the ANC top 6. This never happened. This goes to show the extent to which he is prepared to sink in order to perpetuate a false narrative. You wish to comment on that?
That's what he told me, because I asked him why he didn't ask the president why he was removing him from DPE to Home Affairs. That's what he said.
Then we get to the Guptas application for South African citizenship. Now, again, I don't think this is something, from what I can remember, that you dealt with in your evidence. I just want to, in any detail, I just want to take you through these paragraphs. At 42, during Mr. Gigaba's term of office as Minister of the Department of Home Affairs, he informed me that he was assisting some of the Gupta family members to obtain citizenship in South Africa. He said that the Guptas were conducting business in South Africa and they needed their family then living in India to be in South Africa. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
You confirm that?
Yes, he told me that.
At 43, one day in 2015, Mr. Gigaba came home with a blank official documents in a brown envelope, which he informed me the Guptas needed to sign. I went with him to the Gupta residence, and on arrival, Mr. A.J. Gupta greeted us. Mr. Gigaba went with Mr. A.J. Gupta into a separate room, carrying the same brown envelope. When we left the Gupta residence to go home, Mr. Gigaba carried the same brown envelope with him. The next morning, Mr. Gigaba called me to ask about the whereabouts of the brown envelope. He asked me to look for the brown envelope at home. Later that same day, he called again to inform me that he had found the brown envelope in the boot of the car. So what Mr. Gigaba says is, at 99, this is once again a total fabrication. This, like all the other contents of the affidavit, seem to have been stitched together by Nomshula from various media reports over the years concerning myself. What do you say to that?
I'm not sure why he keep on protecting them, because everything he said, it's something that he told me, it's something that I've seen. So that incident, it happened at home when he came back at the Gupta's house with that envelope. And also, I remember when the media used to have, like, they used to comment about the Guptas in the country, why they owning businesses. And Malusi used to be on their side, even like the way he's on their side right now. He used to say he doesn't understand why people are always asking the presence of the Guptas in South Africa because they are bringing the business in South Africa. So he used to name, which I don't recall, which are those businesses that they used to bring, but he used to say the Guptas are bringing business in this country. He doesn't understand how South Africans think. So that happened. So I even asked him on the day, then I was like, what is that? He said, no, there are documents because they need to bring some of their family members, so some permits. So he was helping them. So when he came back, the documents were in the boot and he forgot. Even myself, I forgot. So in the morning, he was looking for them in his office, asking everywhere. Then I said, I don't remember, where is it? But he was like, I came read it at home. I was like, but I don't remember. Then later he called when he was in the office. He said, no, I found the document in the boot. So that was, he was doing that. So he said he was helping them because they were bringing business in South Africa.
At paragraph 100, he emphatically denied the contents, and he says the suggestion of the brown envelope is a figment of your imagination. You've addressed that, correct?
Yes.
Could we then go to paragraph 46? Now this deals with Mr. Gigaba's appointment as the Minister of Finance. You said at 46, this change in Mr. Gigaba's portfolio appeared to upset him very much. He informed me that the former president told him that he initially wanted to appoint Mr. Molefe as the Minister of Finance, finally decided to appoint him, Mr. Gigaba, at the request of other NEC members. At paragraph 103, Mr. Gigaba said, this is again a total fabrication. Why would one be upset on being appointed a Minister of Finance, etc.? What do you have to say to that?
So he was not upset that he was a Minister of Finance. He was upset the fact that the president, when he told him that it's going to become a Minister of Finance. So he said the president was acting like it's coming from his heart. And Malusi, deep down, he said he knows that the president didn't want him to become a Minister of Finance. He wanted Brian Molefe to become a Minister of Finance. So he was like, I just don't even understand why he acts like he's giving me that portfolio because he didn't want me. So I don't know who suggested that Malusi must become a Minister of Finance. And I remember that time Brian was already in Cape Town. He was staying there was a residence for parliamentarians, yes, at that time. So Malusi was like, I know why Brian was in the parliament, just because he was preparing for his appointment as a Minister of Finance. So when President appointed him, he was like, he think I don't know that I was not his first preference.
Mr. Gigaba says in that paragraph 103 that he never mentioned Mr. Molefe's name to you.
You want me to say something like that?
Yes, can you address that?
Okay.
Are you sure that he mentioned Mr. Molefe's name to you?
Yes, he said that. He said the president wanted Brian to be the Minister of Finance.
And that's, in fact, as I understand your evidence, please correct me if I'm wrong, that's what upset him, that he was effectively the second choice or the fallback choice.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Then can I please take you to paragraph 49 under the heading Gifts. Paragraph 49, you deal with the fact that Mr. A.J. Gupta gave Mr. Gigaba a BMW.
Yes.
And his simple or short response to that is the contents hereof are denied. Do you confirm the contents of your paragraph 49?
Yes, I know, because I drove that car almost a year. But what I remember, when that car, we need to get the renewal of the disc. I think it was a year or almost like 2 years when I was driving that car. So I remember when that car needed to go to service, or maybe we need to get a disc. And even the time when I delivered that car. So his friend, Malusi had 2 Zimbabwean friends who used to do that for him, especially this one friend was focused on this car. So who used to call me. Then we call each other Mlungu because he was dark like Malusi, so it was me way of teasing him. So he will call me, Mlungu, where are you? Then I'm like, no, I will tell him where I am. Like, when are you coming to Sentin? Oh, can I meet you? I want to give you the disc. Or sometimes he was like, no, I want to check the car. When is it due for service? So Joe used to do that for him. So that was his friend. Even the day I took the car to drop it off when he didn't come back. So I was in the roadblock, and the Metropolis officer said to me, are you aware that your light is not working at the front? Then I said I didn't know. Then he said, come out and look. Then I looked at the car because it was a bit in the evening. So when I got home, I told Malusi that I'm going to take the car to fix the lights in the morning because the police said that. So in the morning, Malusi was like, no, don't take the car. I already called my friend, take the car, drop it off with him, so then the protectors will fetch you, come back. Then I was like, no, but there's so many BMWs around where we stay in Pretoria. Why must I take the car all the way to Sandton? Then he was like, no, I want Joe to do it. So that was his friend. So he wanted his friend to do it because most of everything that happens at our house in terms of the car, because Malusi never had a car in his name. So his friends do those things for him. So we don't take cars to service. So I only do that when I bought my own car.
How long did you drive this BMW for?
I drove it, I think, a year and a half or almost 2 years.
My colleague points out to me, if I could take you back to paragraphs 42 and 43, that and I think I mentioned to you that I don't think that you dealt with this in your initial evidence. What's been pointed out to me that these paragraphs under the heading Gupta's applications for South African citizenship, that was one of the things that you said needed to be recrafted.
Yes.
I see it's not something that you've addressed in your correcting affidavit.
Yes.
Do you then?
I'm sorry, Ms. Mabek, have you moved away from the BMW?
Yes, I've gone
You will
backwards.
go back.
Yes, I've gone backward. Do you want to ask something about the BMW?
On the BMW, unless you are still going to go back
No.
to it.
Please.
Yes. You say you kept that car, you drove that car for about a year and a half.
Yes. And then when I drop it off at his friend's place. But I don't know why I took pictures of it when I was standing there at his place in Sandton. And then when the Hawks took my gadgets, so those are the kind of the pictures also that were deleted. All the pictures of that car are deleted on my phone.
And would there be, I guess there would be friends and other people who knew the car when you were driving it?
Yeah, there were people who know that I was driving that car.
Yes. And did you say it was registered in your name or was it not last time?
It was in my name, but very short. It was changed after my name, then it was registered on his friend's name. So when I was looking for it now, I contacted the license department. So they told me that the change of ownership of the car moves from this owner to another owner, then everything just changed automatically to go to another person. So because it was his friend, I don't know why Malusi changed the car from me to his friend.
When did you get to know that part?
Sorry?
When did you get to know that the car was registered in his friend's name at some stage?
Oh no, he did it like, I think, a few months I was driving the car. Malusi told me that he wants the car to be registered under his friend.
Oh, so that was done while you were still
Yes,
using
and
it?
I asked him why. So he said because his divorce dragged for too long. So he said he doesn't want that car to be there because he was married in commit of property. So he doesn't want that car to be taken away from him. So let's put it on his friend. So then he did it.
Yes, okay, Mr. Maibek.
Yes, I just wanted to take you back to paragraphs 42 and 43. When you initially gave evidence, you indicated that these paragraphs would have to be recrafted. And I've noted from your correcting affidavit that you don't deal with them. Do you confirm then the accuracy of paragraphs 42 and 43? This is your version.
Yes, this is my version. The only part that I was correcting on the old affidavit, it was the word saying Malusi approved the neutralization of the Guptas.
That's paragraph 44.
Yes.
But you're happy with 42 and 43?
Yes.
Right. Then could I take you please to paragraph 50? I just wanted to ask you this. You say at paragraph 50 that we invited both the former president and the Guptas. Who required them to be invited? Was that your decision or?
No, Malusi was inviting his own people. I was inviting my own.
So who invited the president and the Guptas?
It's him, because those are his people, not me.
And he says at paragraph 107, I furnished names of certain people I wish to invite, including cabinet ministers and the like. I do not recall all the people invited, nor those that chose not to attend. I think what's inferred here is he's saying he can't recall whether the president and the Guptas were invited.
I know that the president was invited. The reason I remember that is just because when we're in Durban, 2 days before my wedding, we're doing rehearsals. And then they told us that the security people, they need to come and do sweeping, so we need to move away from the venue. And then they did that. Even the following day, they did that. So when he didn't come, so I asked Malu why the president didn't come to the wedding, because there were a lot of preparations for him to come.
Then at your paragraph 51, where you deal with the costs of the wedding and the gift by the Guptas, and payment for their honeymoon in Dubai, Mr. Gigaba says at paragraph 101, I deny that there was any wedding gift of cash from the Guptas or payment towards a honeymoon in Dubai. Do you have any comment on that?
On that one, the reason I know that they gave him money, as I asked them, like, because you were so close, because in 2014, Malusi and the Guptas were very close. So it was very shocking to me that people that are so close, that they have like a very close relationship, they're not attending your wedding. So I asked them why they didn't attend the wedding. Then they said they're going to give him a gift, cash money, as the compensation of them not attending the wedding. So I knew that the Guptas were not coming to the wedding and they were going to give him cash. The only person I didn't know that he was not coming until the wedding day, it was the president.
All right. Then, if I could take you, please, to paragraph 54. Now, this is the paragraph where you explain that at the Gupta residence, this is the handover of money. You say that Mr. Gigaba would call one of his CPOs to bring his leather bag. It was in the boot. It would be put at the front door. He would collect it. Mr. Gigaba would carry it to a private meeting room. A short while later, he would emerge with the bag, carry it out of the residence for the CPO to place in the boot. I recall that Mr. Gigaba had 2 of these leather bags. You attach similar examples in photographs. And then at 55, you go on to say that you subsequently came to learn that these bags had bundles of cash in. Now, what Mr. Gigaba says at paragraph 110 is that this is a blatant untruth. And he says, I refer to a transcript of an ENCA interview given by Namshula on 17 December, copy of which is attached as KMG3. 112. As appears therefrom, she stated that she had never seen me receive any cash physically, and further that she had no evidence of me having received such cash. However, she now claims she saw me with a sports bag or some leather bag, the evidence of which is drawn from internet sources. Now, perhaps I could just take you to another file of documents. I assume you have it in front of you. It's SEQ 18. In other words, that's Mr. Gigaba's application. SEQ 18. We don't seem to have that, Chairperson.
Do we not have?
That's, of course, where Mr. Gigaba's affidavit is
Yeah, it
bundled.
should have been here. But anyway, if you are able
It's
to
not
figure it out,
it's not a particular problem. Perhaps what I could do, and of course I will raise this with Mr. Gigaba as well, and we'll make sure that we have his affidavit here.
Yeah.
But I just want to read to you a portion of the transcript. This is KMG3. It's the transcript of the ENCA interview. And this is at the foot of page 70 of SEQ 18 of 2021. You'll recall, Ms. Gigaba, this was worked through in consultation with you.
Yes.
It records you as having said this: even for our wedding, our honeymoon, so there was always there to help financially, like all the time. And then you said this, the last 5 lines: although I was not there when they give the money, but I will see when we leave. Because every time when we go there, he used to carry a bag and they will give him money. And when we get home, he will take the money and put it in a safe and pack it. So yes, it was there. So what do you say to Mr. Gigaba's contention in paragraph 112 that she stated that she never saw me receive any cash physically, and further that she had no evidence of having received such cash, however she now claims? What do you say to that?
So I will explain is the way I explained it in the beginning. So what happens?
Sorry, this is about what you said
Yes.
during the ENCA interview.
Yes.
What you said is, although I was not there when they give the money, but I will see him when we leave. Because every time we go there, he used to carry a bag and they will give him money. What do you say to Mr. Gigaba's version that you effectively didn't say that?
He didn't say that. You're saying that?
Mr. Gigaba says that you said during the ENCA interview that you had never seen him receive any cash.
Because I said on the interview that I saw Malusi packing money at home. And it was the same bag that we came with it at the Gupta house.
All right.
Did you ever see him receive cash from the Guptas?
I've never seen them giving him money, and
Yes.
that's what I said even in the interview.
Yes.
But what used to happen, when we arrive, Malusi won't take his bag with him inside.
Yeah.
So then we will leave our phones. Then when we were about to leave, Malusi will come, go take his phone and call one of his protectors. He will say, "Chief, please bring my bag." So the protector will bring the bag. Malusi will go in with the bag. And when we leave, Malusi will take the bag with him. So that time, I didn't know what was inside, what was happening. But there's this one day, we were home, and we came from the Gupta's house, and then quickly when I get home, Malusi went to his study. Then I quickly went to check the child. When I got there, the nanny was telling me that the child is sick, so I checked the temperature. Then I felt the temperature was too high. Then I rushed to him. When I was there, I saw him packing the money. And then I was shocked when I saw a lot of money. Malusi was packing it because his safe was open. Then I asked him, I was like, "Where do you get a lot of money? Why so much money?" Then he shouted at me. He was like, "Why did you knock?" I didn't understand why I have to knock at home, at our own home. Then he kept on shouting like, "Why you didn't knock when you come in the house?" Then I was like, "The child is sick. Where do you get this money? Why this money?" Then he was like, "I got it from the Guptas," because it was the same bag. Then I was like, "Why the Guptas are giving you so much money?" He said it was for the elections. So he's gonna take it and he give it to to the treasury of the ANC. Then I was like, what is it for? Then he said, there are things that they need to do. Sometimes they buy T-shirts. So he explained like that, but I didn't know how. I remember when I asked, I was like, so why you have to raise this money yourself? Then he said, like, this is the nature of the ANC. As the head of election, he used to raise money. So the money was for the elections. And then after that, he said he's coming. He continued to pack the money. Then I left. Then after that, we take the child to the hospital.
So, but Ms. Gigaba,
Yes.
just so that we understand,
Okay.
you didn't see Mr. Gigaba
Yes.
get money, physically get money
From the Gupta
from the
compound.
Guptas. As I understand it, you describe what happened,
Yes.
and then you describe at paragraph 55, you say, I subsequently learned that the bags contained bundles of cash.
Yes.
And there you explain the shopping in Sandton City, all right?
Yes.
And you, on another occasion, speak about the unpacking of the money into a safe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right.
Also, when this instance happened in Sentin, it was not only me alone.
Yeah.
His bodyguards
Sorry,
also
I
were
just
there.
want you to confirm
Yes, I confirm.
that you didn't see him
Yes.
receive money. You didn't see money being put into the bag
Yes.
at the Gupta residence.
Yes.
How did you come to learn that he received money from the Guptas?
The one that I saw him picking it home from the bag that he came out with from the
Yes.
Gupta house, he said to me, he got that money from the Guptas.
Yes.
And I asked him, what was it for? He said it was for elections.
Yes, you've explained that.
Yes.
And how else? Were there other occasions that you came to
We
learn?
were in Sentin.
Yes, in Sandton. And what
Yes.
happened in Sandton?
So we're coming from the Gupta's house. It was me, him, and his protectors. So then the money, there was a bag in the boot. So when Malusi came at the front, because they used to open both of us, Malusi was on the other side, I was on the other side. Then Malusi went in the boot, and then he opened the big bag.
Yes.
The bag was coming from the Gupta's house. And then he took the money, he put it, and his bodyguards were there also. It was not only me. And it
so
was just stash of cash.
at 55.1, you say there were several occasions when Mr. Gigaba and I would go to Sandton City immediately after visiting the Gupta residence. Is that right?
Yes.
At Sandton City and in my full view, Mr. Gigaba would take bundles of cash out of the same leather bag that he had brought from the Gupta residence. Is that right?
No.
Right.
So what used to happen, it will be a big bag.
Yes.
Okay, chairperson. So it used to be a big bag that it will come out from the Gupta house. Then it will go in the boot. So the two instances I remember, at home, Malusi was packing the money from that big bag that was coming from the Gupta house. And he confirmed to me that he was given that money by AJ for the elections. The second time it was in Sandton. So he took the money from the big bag to a small bag. So wherever he goes, Malusi used to have like a sling bag that is small. So he didn't take that whole entire big bag. He took the money, he put it on the small bag. And then he took some of it, he gave to his protector. He said he must go and pay for his suit. And sometimes when we're in Sandton, we will go have lunch, and then he will ask his bodyguard, please go pay for my suit. So he used to go pay for the suit. So most of the time the man will already on his sling bag, which means he will put it home before we come. Not like all the time he will do the transfer from this way.
Let me put the question another way.
Okay.
How many times were you together with Mr. Gigaba in Sandton City after a visit to the Gupta residence? How many times?
That I saw the money from the big bag transferred.
Yes.
It was once.
And how many times were you with Mr. Gigaba when he bought suits?
It was a couple of times.
Yeah. And where did the money come from for the suits?
From his small bag,
Yeah.
the sling bag that he used to carry.
Yeah. And where did the money come from in that bag?
Only the bag that he used to carry.
Yes, but where did he get the money from?
That's what I'm saying. It was not all the time he will transfer the money from the big bag, because sometimes we will leave from Pretoria to Sandton. It was not all the time or we leave from the Gupta compound. So sometimes we will just leave from home, going to Sentin. Malusi will say, let's go have lunch in Sentin, or sometimes we'll go do our facial in Sentin. So when we do that, you will already have the money in the bag. I don't understand. Do you understand me?
No, I understand. So you say...
DCJ, I'm told that we have to adjourn very urgently.
Oh,
It's apparently a protector-related issue.
okay, I'm told 5 minutes break. Let's adjourn. Let me hear what it's about. Let's adjourn for 5 minutes, and then I'll come back. We adjourn. With Ms. Gigaba, about an hour. Okay. I've been informed that there are security reasons for us to adjourn. So I know that we were going to hear evidence and then Mr. Peter's evidence. So we are going to adjourn. I'm sorry about that. It's a situation beyond everyone's control. And then we'll just have to arrange. If we are left with an hour I wonder whether we couldn't do that hour tomorrow if she's available in the morning before we start with Mr. Peter.
And perhaps we could do that remotely, DCJ, if that would be better.
Well, I think that we should still be able to come here.
Yes.
Unless we are advised differently, I think we should still be able to. Ms. Gigaba, would you be available tomorrow morning? How is your situation? I'm sorry, your mic? Just switch on your mic.
It depends if my
Your legal team.
is she's available. If she's available, I'll come.
What's your situation like?
Chairperson, depending on the allocations of time, I think maybe if we end, I would understand for the hour that we would be able to finish.
Sorry?
The suggestion, Chairperson, was that we'll finish, we need another hour.
Yes.
So I was trying to understand whether the time we need for tomorrow will be the hour that...
Yes.
Yeah, it would be an hour.
And maybe if I may ask, Chairperson, what time in the morning are we looking at so that I would have to reshuffle immediately?
I think with regard to Mr. Gigaba, we wanted to start at
We wanted
9.
to start at 9 tomorrow with Mr. Gigaba. I think we probably need to get as early a start as possible, DCJ,
Yes.
tomorrow morning, whatever you consider appropriate.
Yes. With us sitting until as late as I thought we would this evening, I was tempted to think, well, maybe 10 o'clock instead of 9.
Yes.
But maybe we should stick to 9 and use that 9 to 10 for her evidence, and then we can take it from there and hear Mr. Gigaba's evidence after that.
And then I will rearrange things with Mr. Peter.
With Mr. Peter, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so is that fine? You would be here?
Okay.
She says she's available if it's just an hour.
Yeah, it's fine as long as I finish with this. I'm tired.
Yeah,
I'll come.
You'll come. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson.
DCJ, sorry, could I just ask you one thing? Tomorrow we have to stop, as you will recall, with Mr. Gigaba at 4 o'clock because his counsel has got, for religious reasons. If Mr. Peter is available tomorrow at 4, could we try and fit him in then?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll try. How long do you think he would be?
No, well, I suppose that isn't going to work. Perhaps I could discuss that with you in chambers.
Yeah, we can discuss that, yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you to everybody for making it possible for us to continue up to now at least. We are going to adjourn then, and we'll continue tomorrow. We adjourn.